It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interviews.
There's going to be much higher expectations, sense of awareness of what we bring to the table.
Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Throws, ends it, yes! Caught! Touchdown, did it!
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome on into another edition, Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker, here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan, streaming on 1069thefan.com, and, of course, on the 1069 The Fan mobile app. Still a lot of things to get through today here on the Full Court Press this hour. More about what's going on with Utah State football. We'll hear more comments from Coach Anderson. We got the stat that blew our minds, our player of the week as well. We got the Utah Jazz to talk about. So a lot of different things still going on, the NCAA tournament, NIT, whatever. There's a lot of things to go through. World Baseball Classic, still a great time of the year with a lot of different things converging and happening all at the same time. Spring football, wonderful time of the year. And we actually have some sunshine. We actually think that there is spring around the corner. Finally.
Don't say that. They might hear you.
I know. I don't want to jinx anything because actually we are supposed to get more snow this week. So maybe I saw overnight tonight into tomorrow we could have like a foot to a foot and a half of new snow up at Tony Grove. So for our skiers and boarders, it's not over yet. There's still some good powder coming up to Beaver Mountain this weekend, tomorrow. But anyway, we digress. Couple of things that I want to get to this hour is just, I think, just more observations about what's going on with Utah State football. And certainly a lot of questions about this team this year. A lot of changeover with coaches, a lot of changeover with personnel. And, Jason, reading your article last night as you got a chance to talk with the coaches, and we'll hear from Blake Anderson here in a second. But one of the things that stood out to me the most was, for all the talk about transfer portals, and as we were talking yesterday, players leaving and transferring, and do G5 players routinely go up to P5 programs, or is it the other way around? Regardless of your feelings about the transfer portal, the fact of the matter is Utah State has had a lot of guys leave, and this coaching staff didn't really hit the transfer portal very hard for this year's recruiting class, at least not in the traditional sense that we've come to know and realize. And we knew that this football team really went after the junior college ranks a lot in this recruiting class, and thought that was a little bit different compared to what Blake Anderson has done before in previous recruiting classes here at Utah State. And he gave a little bit more, I guess, premise behind that, helping us understand why it was so important, or why did they get so many players out of the junior college ranks this year compared to what they've done in the past.
Yeah, it seems to have been a deliberate strategy. If you want to view it pessimistically, I guess you could say that he's just trying to justify not being able to get Division I transfers. I don't necessarily buy that line of logic. I do think he's being upfront when he says they went after junior college guys because they thought that's where they could get the best bang for their buck. He felt that it might have been harder to get quality players out of the transfer portal as opposed to from the junior college ranks. So it seems to have been a deliberate strategy on his part.
Yeah, interesting comments here from Coach Anderson about maybe the transfer portal being overvalued or over-recruited. So here's, in his own words, Blake Anderson talking about the transfer portal, which has become a real negative term for if it's affecting your team negatively, if you're seeing guys leave. But if you're seeing it as an opportunity to fill immediate needs, then it's a blessing. So it's a mixed bag with the transfer portal. But here's some comments from Blake Anderson yesterday after their first practice of spring football for USU.
You know, we felt like that the portal was overvalued a little bit last cycle. When we came in the beginning, we brought kind of guys with us that we'd already kind of prepared to bring. This last year, the portal was really, really overvalued, heavily over-recruited at times, and we felt like the junior college market was under-recruited. So we did prepare for some attrition. Felt like that we would lose some guys, and we tried to be prepared. And we don't have every spot filled, but we're pretty close. Guys that we felt like would meet needs and could help us. And I hope the strategy works. I mean, we got a really big roster right now for spring. This is the biggest roster I've ever had in spring ball. We're well over 100. Normally you're in the 85, 90 range. So we've got a large roster, a lot of guys to evaluate, and I think it's because we were proactive in the process.
Historically, if you're trying to build a roster and fill immediate needs, that was the way to go the JC route. And it was kind of a mixed bag historically, and we've seen Utah State play this game before under previous coaches, where if you need immediate need at various positions, you go get somebody from the junior college ranks, and they can help do that. But sometimes you're doing that at the expense of building your program long term. Sometimes coaches would go get some players out of JC to fill a specific need. The team looks good. The coach helps his own resume, so to speak, and then he bolts. And the next guy who comes in, cupboard's kind of bare because you're not developing players in the program with these long-term investment, if you will, in these players and learning the game, developing their bodies. And, sometimes you had to because of injuries or things like that. But in this transfer portal era, we haven't seen a lot of that out of Utah State going the JC route until this last year. So it's kind of interesting to see how that works. But he ends it with something that is really kind of interesting about this year's team, just how many guys are on campus right now. Very unusual to have so many players on campus already in the midst of what's going on with spring training, spring football, and their own personal strength and development.
Yeah, and that does come a lot from having junior college guys because they're usually able to enroll for spring ball more so than Division I transfers and high school players. They do have some of the high school players who were able to enroll early, but a good chunk of those high schoolers aren't here yet because obviously they're still finishing up their senior year. The Division I guys, I'm not sure if any of them are here right now. I believe Colby Bowman is not here right now. I think he's finishing up his degree at Stanford. I'm not 100% sure on the other two Division I transfers. They only have 3 D1 guys coming from other schools. So, yeah, it is a function of bringing in guys who are more able to be in spring ball. And kind of to your point, as far as Utah State getting these JC guys, I think, in as far as building programs, I think what you were describing as far as JC being the short-term solution, I think that's now kind of transitioned to, the transfer portal is your short-term.
Yeah, true.
That's where you're getting your – and Anderson's explained in previous press conferences like earlier this year where he's not as big a fan of bringing in one-and-done guys. He's not completely opposed to it. He did it last year. He's doing it this year.
It's benefited him in the past.
Yeah, and it has benefited him. And so he's not going to just turn up his nose at somebody just because they have only 1 year left, but he has favored players who have, at least 2 years. And pretty much all these JC guys, they're going to have 2, sometimes 3 years left. And so he favors those because, he can find talented guys who maybe have a little bit of college experience, but might be able to step in right away. It's basically like finding a bunch of redshirt freshmen. That's basically what redshirt freshmen with experience on the football field. Like that's kind of what he's looking for. Maybe redshirt sophomores,
right?
Might be a more apt explanation there. But he's trying to use junior college, while also, actually he's trying to find transfers while also maintaining a, couple years down the road. If these JC guys pan out, they're not just leaving after 1 year; they can stay for another year. And so he's trying to balance both sides where he's trying to still develop his program and not just sell out for 1 year over and over and over again and just live by the transfer portal. He's trying, time will tell whether or not he succeeds, but he's trying, and there is a method to the madness here of what he's doing. He has a very clear philosophy. We're just going to have to see if it works.
Yeah, because there are some programs where you can be a transfer destination. Is Utah State a transfer destination? Not yet. I mean, there's been some, to some degree, sure. It's an opportunity to revitalize your college career.
Yeah.
But really, at the end of the day, Utah State is a development program, development school. And it's not going to get it might get 1 or 2 4-star guys. It's rare. You're not going to get 5-star guys. So most of your talent is homegrown, developed within your own program, give them more opportunities to grow and develop and take larger responsibilities. And that was historically the case, but it's a different era now with opportunities to transfer and plug in guys right away who have somebody else has paid that investment in them, and you give them a shot to shine where they weren't getting those opportunities somewhere else.
I think Utah State, calling them a transfer destination is tricky because there's multiple kind of transfers you can get, at least for a mid-major program. If you're looking transfer destination of your 5-star transfers that are looking to vault themselves into the NFL, sorry, Utah State is not going to be getting any of those guys. The reclamation 4-stars who went to P5 program and aren't doing well, that's the perfect target for Utah State, and it's worked out really well.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a perfect fit pitch for anybody who's ever played at the University of Utah because, like, every single person transfers from Utah to Utah State ends up playing really well and having a better career than they did at Utah.
Yeah, they usually win awards.
Yeah, they end up being like all conference or like at least one of the team leaders.
Yeah.
So, and they've done that with other positions in other schools as well. So it's Utah State has a really good selling pitch for guys who say, "Hey, look, it's not working out at your P5 program. You come here, you're going to dominate, and you can potentially get yourself pro by coming here." They have a really good selling point in that regard.
Right.
So for that kind of transfer, they are making themselves a target destination where they say, "Hey, you go to Utah State." A P5 coach is telling his former 4-star recruits like, "Hey, it's not working out here, but you know where you can go and play well and maybe get to the pros? Utah State." Because Utah State's building a track record. It's not a perfect track record, but a really good track record of taking these former P5, 3, 4-star recruits and turning them into the best players on their team and vaulting them into the pros.
Right, giving them opportunities to turn into the best versions of themselves. And I think that's really what they're trying to do and trying to accomplish. Now, and the staff was doing a pretty good job of that and illustrating that it would be a destination place, but suddenly it's become a place where people are leaving instead. And look, that's just the world we live in now. I don't know that we should be, generally speaking, overly concerned when players announce that they're leaving a program. That happens to every program everywhere around the country. What is concerning is if they happen in droves. And that's what's happened, especially on the defensive side for Utah State. And they're not – one of the other interesting things from Coach Anderson was that he's got a lot of guys on campus right now. They recruited and signed more than they normally would, but they're still not done recruiting because they still have holes to fill. And there's still a few positions that they've got to address.
We're still in the process of recruiting. We still have a handful, and as you've seen, we've had some portal movement, so we'll replace those spots at some point. So we're actively recruiting probably 4 or 5 spots right now. We'd like to be full strength at 85 in the fall. That'll obviously depend on, as we come out of spring, do we have another attrition cycle, guys that are maybe not playing enough or whatever, but you never stop recruiting now. It's year-round. It never stops.
Yeah, maybe I could have followed up and asked which positions those specifically were. I don't know if he was willing to give up that information. Maybe I could have asked.
I'd imagine linebacker's got to be one of them.
Yeah, linebacker and offensive line are probably the two that come to mind the most. Maybe a transfer running back. Those are about the only 3 positions where I feel like Utah State is weak. Because safety, they're fine. Corner, they're mostly fine. Maybe a bit more depth at corner. But offensive line, I have no clue who's starting at left tackle. Don't know who's starting at right guard or center. I don't know. Felipe will start at either guard or center. I'm pretty sure he's going to start at center. He could start at guard. So you've got 2 spots on the starting offensive line you need to fill. But ideally, you go 7 deep at offensive line like they did last year. I've got 3 guys that I know can play. Obviously, they know who can play better than I do. But they need offensive line. They needed a linebacker for depth. They were okay at linebacker until they lose 2 of them late in the process. Lose a striker and they're starting inside linebacker. So now they're suddenly light there. So those are the top 2. I'm not sure what the other spots are. You can always use more players everywhere.
Yeah, and they probably could use still another player or 2 on the defensive line.
Yeah, I guess I should say that's a defensive end price specifically.
Yeah, and specifically, yes.
And then more depth on because there's I think 3, maybe 4 deep. I'm confident on in the defensive line, at least rotation capability. Defensive end, it's like 2. So that gives you your starters. And that's it.
Pretty thin.
So yeah, that's another one. I guess I forgot. So that's another one right up there with linebackers and offensive linemen.
But what is nice is that there are so many guys. Keep saying this. Just that is a huge benefit for a coaching staff to have so many players already on campus. Not only to go through spring, if you've got these new coaches learning new dialogue, new personalities, but understanding the playbook, but you get extra time on campus in the weight room with these coaches, more time studying film with these coaches, and it's going to put them further ahead, even though they're at a deficit because of players who left. I'm not going to say this is going to totally make up for that because at the end of the day, talent is talent. If you don't have it, you just don't have it. But this is going to help in a big way in overcoming some of those deficits, if that makes sense. Just having so many extra players on campus now compared to when they arrive in August, early August.
You know, it gives you a chance to make mistakes early, and then you can get on top of things.
Yeah, very true. Because he said, we don't know what's going to happen after spring ball. We might have more attrition. Sometimes you go through spring and the coaching staff is like, you know what? We brought you here. You're not getting what you think, and we just don't think it's going to be much different in the fall. So sometimes players are in the portal because they've been coached in that direction. Because coaches realize that you're just not going to get the opportunity here. So let us help you find a landing spot where you can. And sometimes people will look at all these names in a transfer portal and think that's a negative reflection on the coaching staff or the culture. And that's not always the case.
Yeah, and as far as having a lot of guys in spring ball, knowing what you have is the biggest thing. And the best way a coach can know what he has is to watch these guys.
Right.
Anderson was like
Run him through it.
Yeah, you got him through drills and reps, and I don't know exactly how many 11-on-11 reps they do in spring ball. They weren't even in pads yesterday. But, just getting to see him in person, because most of these guys won't have seen these players in person, and especially not in a practice scenario running their stuff and all that. So knowing who they have, and then at the end of spring ball, they can say, all right, we have a better idea of what this roster is because we have basically everybody. If you only have 2/3 of your roster, then you're like, okay, well, we know we don't have this and we don't have this. We think this guy who we haven't seen yet on
we'll have
campus.
to wait and see on X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, but if it's like, okay, we had like 90% of our roster on here, and we know we're missing this, and so we can go get that.
Right. If this is what we want to do with our game plan, but we just don't have the guy to really execute it the right way, then we can scrap that part of the playbook. Let's stop focusing on trying to develop this play. If we just don't have the guys to do it. So we can make adjustments with what we can do with the personnel that we have.
Yeah. And if it turns out that you think somebody's really overperforming and he's going to end up playing better than you think, then that can maybe, and if you were planning on using a roster spot or a scholarship on a position, you find out, okay, I don't need to do it here because this guy, he's a redshirt freshman, but dang, he's playing like he should be playing more. Then you say, all right, we maybe put it on him, and we're going to use that scholarship on a different positional need. That's another thing that can happen. So there's a real benefit to being able to have all these guys in front of you in spring ball. make the mistakes early, figure out who you have. You can work on fixing those mistakes earlier since you've already made them, and you can work on improving yourself.
Yeah, great point. And the other part, too, is being able to understand the language, understand the personalities that you have. And one of that is there are new coaches on this staff. And granted, it's still very, very early, but Coach addressed that getting to know each other, becoming more comfortable with each other, understanding who these new coordinators are, and players adjusting to these new guys.
I think the way the kids have handled it since January now has been awesome. Even just the last late turnaround defensively, the conversations have been really good about how open they've been. I thought defensively for that to be really a 2-week turnaround, they did a really good job today. Coach Carlton and Mitch have come in and spent a lot of time with them in a very short time frame. They've got a lot of hours and meetings, and guys are coming in and volunteering a ton of time to learn. I thought today was a good product of that. So.
Okay, so we brought up Joe Cawthon, his new defensive coordinator, and that's an interesting story about how that came about.
Yeah, it was. I'll say this. I hadn't learned everybody's names like fully yet and internalized them, and so when I was transcribing this quote, I transcribed it as Carlton.
Oh.
Because I'd seen his name, but I hadn't remembered. I highlighted, okay, I know I transcribed this one. This can't be it. So I went back. Okay. And I've now internalized how to spell Joe Cawthon now. So writing like 2.5 articles in a single day helped me spell his name correctly. But yeah, the story was interesting, and I think I included that in my article today as well.
Yeah, and Ephraim Bonda looked like he was going to be the guy. We knew that Coach Tucker was on the move, and it was going to be Blake Anderson with Kyle Cefalo working together on the offense, but it looked like Ephraim Bonda was going to be back. And then all of a sudden, kind of out of the nowhere, he gets picked off and goes to the NFL. But Coach Anderson said it didn't take him long to find a replacement.
Joe was my coordinator for 5 years. We won 2 championships. We took over I was a 5th head coach in 5 years. We took over a decimated roster. We had 55 scholarship players when we got there. So he went through the rebuilding process with me. He did a great job with the defense before he left to go to Houston. But we go back all the way back to the mid-'90s when we were at Trinity Valley together. There's nobody's going to outwork him. He puts his heart and soul in what he's doing into the kids. He's technically one of the most sound coaches I've ever been around, and he fits what we do. And I think our kids have seen that. I needed somebody I could completely trust. It literally took me about 5 seconds. As soon as Bandon told me he's leaving, I called Joe immediately. I knew exactly what I wanted, and I feel like he's a perfect fit for us. And I think our kids would tell you the initial just kind of getting to know him and how he operates and how he pours into guys, they've been really, really pleased, I think, with the initial month of having him here.
So cameo by the equipment buggy.
I know.
I know when I was listening to it back when I was transcribing, I was like, hey, if we put this on the radio, it's going to sound horrible. Because it just...
They always seem to drive by right as you're getting the juicy part of the quote.
No, it was the best quote, too. Where he was talking about just how quickly he thought of Joe. So it's just like... And it fits, like, and honestly, and I go into a little more detail in my article where it's just like, we talked about his fit, and I hadn't done this research yet. Now I've done it. It's like you look at this stylistically, some of the strengths and weaknesses of Bonda's defenses and Joe's defense, like they're dang near the same. They're defenses that tend to be mediocre, or at least Bonda's defenses at Utah State. I didn't look at him before Utah State, but at Utah State, Bonda's defenses kind of mediocre sometimes and just like raw total defense stats, yards per game, scoring defense, whatnot. But they are elite at getting tackles for loss, sacks, and forcing turnovers. Joe Cawthon's defenses do the same. They tended to be mediocre. He has had a couple that are, like I think a couple at Houston were higher up in like total yards and yards allowed and whatnot. But year after year, team after team, his defenses, wherever he goes, get tackles for loss, sacks, and turnovers. And so I think it's a spectacular fit here at Utah State.
Well, and the thing that stands out to me, too, is just the familiarity with him and Coach Blake Anderson. They don't have to try to get to know each other, understand each other's philosophies. he's going to step in hand in glove, understanding what Blake Anderson likes, what he wants done, and he has an opportunity to try to put his imprint on things here at Utah State with a lot of guys on campus right now, and start working on that and understanding what they do and what they don't have. More about Utah State football and spring practices underway coming up here on the Full Court Press. We'll also get into the stat that blew our minds, player of the week. We'll get into that as well. Also a reminder, Best of Northern Utah contest is going on. Make sure you vote on your favorite businesses. Somebody did you right with the way they took care of you. Go vote for them as the Best of Northern Utah at bestofnorthernutah.com.
Girls, insist he take you to Jarek's. Picking out your wedding ring is an experience you will never forget. Come to a place where the mood is right and the setting is perfect for romance. Jarek's Fine Jewelry in Logan. The perfect collection of memorable designs, classic creation, and modern marvels. If you want an intimate, romantic experience you will never forget, then insist he takes you to Jarek's Fine Jewelry. Make it special, make it Jarek's at 930 North Main in Logan.
Jarek's Fine Jewelry. Make it special, make it Jarek's.
Elements has delicious lunch specials, 2 for $30, or the new soup, salad, and bread special for just $10. It's tasty and quick. Elements lunch menu is full of scrumptious items prepared with a personal touch. Wood-fired pizzas are an excellent choice that include barbecue chicken and the bee's knees. The fresh battered halibut fish and chips with seasoned fries is always a hit. And don't forget the fan favorite Munster burger, casual or professional. Open Monday through Thursday, 11:30 to 8 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11:30 to 9 p.m. Visit theelementsrestaurant.com for reservations today.
It's never too late or too cold to get rid of that old vehicle. Now is the time to earn extra cash by calling DD Auto and Salvage. Let them pay you for that junk vehicle. DD Auto and Salvage makes it so easy and fast to get rid of your junker vehicles by paying you the most money possible. Pickup is available. If you have metal, DD Auto and Salvage in Logan wants to pay you today. Call 787-1204.
That's 787-1204 today.
See store for details.
Let's talk about getting your car registered. What a pain. With registration and emissions, it can take a long time. Valvoline Instant Oil Change in Logan, across from Angie's, will take that pain away. Stop in to get your oil changed and have your emissions done, and then re-register your car. It's all that easy in one stop. The best thing, you can stay in your car while our trained pros service your vehicle. Valvoline Instant Oil Change, 695 North Main, open 7 days a week.
Hi, this is Tyler. Recently, my father passed away, and White Pine provided the funeral services for our family. They were friendly, thoughtful, and attentive to every detail. You know, it isn't often that a loved one passes away, so it was very important to my family that everything be handled just right. Because my dad was loved by so many people, we had a lot of family and friends that traveled from out of town. I really appreciate how White Pine Funeral Services made sure everyone was comfortable and that the focus was where it needed to be, on my dad and my family. They really took care of us during this tender time.
Own a small business or a farm? You thought about solar? Listen up. A new USDA grant was announced allocating $300 million for farmers and small business owners to put in solar. That's right. The government will help you get solar installed, covering 40% of the cost. And don't forget, as a business, you can save up to 50 or 60% more with federal and state tax credits. Second Sun Solar will install your system and help with the USDA paperwork. Call Second Sun Solar today at 435-363-9917 or online at utahsolardirect.com.
Put your logo on a hat, on a t-shirt, a mug, or a water bottle. The Logo Shop can do that. The Logo Shop can logo pens for your business, t-shirts for your crew, uniforms for your school or team. Your logo proudly displayed on hats for your workers, backpacks for your class, jackets for your employees, golf balls for your buddies. They can put your logo on just about anything. Get your spring and summer orders in now to the Logo Shop.
The Logo Shop. The Logo Stop. The Logo Shop.
The Cache Valley Media Group Home and Garden Show presented by Anderson Seed and Garden is March 24th and 25th at the Eccles Ice Center in North Logan. A sure sign spring is on its way. Experience hundreds of home and gardening ideas. This year's home show has over 100 businesses that are excited to help your home and yard look better than ever. The Cache Valley Home and Garden Show, March 24th and 25th, again at the Eccles Ice and Event Center in North Logan. Don't miss this year's huge show.
The Aggies, the Jazz, the high schools, the Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
It's not a wholesale change. there are some changes, but it's still built from a 4 down. We didn't wholesale change the entire offense. We made some adjustments we think we needed to make. So kids have handled good. They've handled as good as you can expect them to.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. That's Coach Blake Anderson. After the first day of practice for Utah State, spring football underway. Another open practice going on right now under the beautiful sun and at least warmer temperatures.
Yeah, actually able to withstand them.
Yeah. There's going to be more weather in the forecast later this week, so outdoor practices may be a premium this week, but hoping to get more outdoor practices in the future. Because when they are outdoor, they're open to the public. When they have to shift to the lob indoor, then it's closed to the public. But anyway, well, one of the things that he touches on there is that was Coach Anderson talking about any changes offensively or defensively, and it doesn't really sound like defensively there's really going to be any difference. Coach Cawthon pretty much going to run the same philosophy as Ephraim Bonda, but a few tweaks on offense. And what's interesting is, Blake Anderson getting back to his roots as a play caller offensively.
Yeah, certainly interesting. There'll probably be more changes on defense than on offense because this is kind of still Blake's system, or at least under Tucker was at least heavily inspired by Blake. He just wasn't calling plays and doing a lot of the day-to-day. With defense, sounds like it's going to be the same formation. That's where you're saying it's coming out of a 4 down, basically 4 defensive linemen. I don't know whether they're going to roll with the 2 linebackers and like the hybrid striker linebacker. I don't know if that will specifically be part of it. Maybe we'll see, but it'll probably be like a lot of modern defenses, which have kind of gone away from a 7-man front and into kind of a hybrid 6.5-man front, where they try and have a hybrid. That's typically that 7th person, one of the linebackers. They try and have them be a bit of a coverage linebacker or something they can easily switch in and out of for a nickel package, where the nickel package is almost the base package nowadays for some teams. But yeah, in terms of offense, probably pretty similar. So there's some adjustments they'll make, but Blake Anderson's going to be running the same system he's been running. Obviously it probably evolved over time as he's gotten, older and wiser too.
And it kind of depends on your personnel.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does depend a little bit on the personnel. But yeah, he's been probably running similar offensive systems since he started being an offensive coordinator in the late '90s. So I don't expect too many huge changes. But obviously, the one thing he really wants to change is no turnovers. He was not happy at all about the turnovers, and honestly, that may have been the thing that got Tucker kind of dismissed. I don't know, how that ended, as far as if he was fired or just decided to leave, because Anderson was not happy about the number of turnovers.
Interesting. I think that's as much on Coach Anderson as anybody, with running a quarterback who's out there who's not healthy to be out there.
Yeah, and of course Anderson, you talk about how he wants the pressure to be on him. So I don't know, it was just he wants to take over.
Yeah, one of the things that we learned in January and February is just how he is getting back into that role as the offensive play caller for the team. And yesterday after practice, he kind of explained why.
A lot of experience in this offense and coaching quarterbacks, and felt like that had something to offer. We turned the ball over too much. And that's the one thing, you go back and look at my track record as an offense coordinator and quarterbacks coach in this system, we've protected the football, and it gives us a chance to win. And I feel like I could either hire somebody and tell them what I want them to do, or I could just step in and do it, which I've done in the past. Probably would have never stepped away from calling plays and been a quarterback coach if my wife hadn't got sick years ago. That was really the only reason I stepped away. I enjoyed it. We had a good system in place, but I had to make a choice between, trying to help her battle cancer and being in that room every day. So I'm in a place now in my life where I can, and I feel like I can add something. I want the pressure on me. I don't want it on somebody else.
I actually don't mind that at all. He is, but there can be challenges when we see coaches that stay as coordinators. That's where they came from, and they sometimes kind of hang on to those roles that they had before. Because at the end of the day, you are the head coach, and you are responsible for everything that goes on with your team. But we've seen coaches across college football effectively do this, either as the defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator, in addition to being the head coach. It can be tricky. It creates more demands on your time, and it creates distractions away from being the head coach. But that's what got them into the positions that they're in. And I don't really mind that Blake Anderson is getting more involved as into the nitty-gritty of what goes on with Utah State's offense.
Yeah, and it'll come down to, obviously, one is, being able to effectively use your time, and it does also come down to, can you delegate effectively? And I've used Bill Belichick as an example over and over, where he focuses on his strength and he kind of delegates his weaknesses to people who know more than him. On particularly, Belichick's defensive coach, he delegates to an offensive coach. Andy Reid has delegated to a defensive coach at times. There's plenty of other coaches who've done that, depending on what their strength is, defense or offense. They'll find an offensive or defensive coordinator that helps pick up the pace for them on the one side of the ball where they don't know as much. And that's why, Joe Calhoun is such a huge hire, as far as, he can either obviously tank the team by being bad, or he can make this team. Like Ephraim Bonda helped make that championship team by how good he was at his job.
Yeah, true.
And Joe Calhoun can do the same, where Anderson's going to focus on the defense. That's where he knows. That's where his, the knowledge.
Offense, you mean?
Yeah, the offense. Yeah, that's where his knowledge base is. That's where his experience is. That's what he's good at, is coaching that. Not only he should be able to coach the defense as well, but he's got to leave a lot of the expertise to the people who have that expertise. Let them do their job. And so it's certainly possible for him to just basically be the offensive coordinator. But it does add more pressure to the defensive coordinator to, well, I basically have to coach one half of the entire team mostly by myself without a ton of supervision, because the head coach is going to be distracted more by the offense.
Yeah.
And if it works, it works. There's no perfect one system that always works no matter what, and you have to follow that. Whatever you can get to work, works.
Yeah. No, I like that. And but with that, I mean, yeah, he's taking on some more responsibilities, not just as the offensive coordinator, but he's also the quarterback's coach. And trying to put a staff together, all these new players, and being a head coach, and being the offensive coordinator and the quarterback's coach, it's a lot to put on his plate.
It's been hectic, there's no doubt, and getting back involved on the offense and being in the room with the quarterbacks, I love that. I mean, it actually is a lot of fun to get back in there, but you got to compartmentalize your life a little bit. When am I going to spend time being the OC? When am I going to spend time being the quarterback coach? When am I going to spend time hiring staff? And it's been a lot.
It has been a lot.
I think
you can imagine.
I think he needs to hire a quarterback coach, and I think that's probably something he may end up doing. Now, his background is as a quarterback coach into offensive coordinator. That's still more his background. It's stuff he knows. But need a little more time to spend with the entire offense than focus on the quarterbacks than the offense. And that's a little too much responsibility, I think, putting on himself. That's just my opinion, but I think if he gets a QB position coach, it frees him up to, because the problem is that if he's head coach, offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, he has a hard time just standing there with the quarterbacks and they're doing drills to run them through the drills and coach them, because, okay, now I'm distracted, I have to go off and coach, this other section, or the whole, he either has to pick on ignoring a lot of the rest of the offense or the rest of the team, coaching the quarterbacks, or he ends up ignoring the quarterbacks and they're not getting the coaching they need. So we need somebody there that he can delegate to where, sure, as an offensive coordinator, you're going to spend time with the quarterbacks coaching them. You're going to spend time with them. You're going to go between all these. But he needs to be able to leave without just leaving his quarterbacks alone to twiddle their thumbs or do whatever they do without being coached.
You can do that with a graduate assistant. You'll have GAs on the staff. And oftentimes they're running the dirty work while the routines, the drills, so that the other coaches can go over and observe other things or insert themselves in what's going on and other issues on the field. So I'm not necessarily overly concerned about that, because I don't know all the GAs they have on staff for this upcoming season and what their responsibilities will be, but I'm sure he would have one assigned to the quarterbacks
I'm sure they're not just going to stand there not doing anything just because.
There's good leadership usually in that room, and they can kind of govern themselves a bit. But I would imagine as the head coach and all the other duties that he has, he's going to have some delegation. There are some people to help him do that. Certainly he's going to be involved, but he's got to have help because he's going to have too many other responsibilities. He should have more responsibilities as not just the offensive coordinator, but the head coach first and foremost.
Yeah, but I think with delegating to a grad assistant, that can work, running drills and maybe in film study. It's just you want to have a guy in there who has experience being a coach, and be able to have him run film study with the quarterbacks and not have to stagger all of them so that Anderson can run film sessions with his quarterbacks and not just have them watching film alone with the grad, because that can maybe work, but you're not getting as much out of it as you could if you had a quarterback coach with a lot more experience in that regard.
True.
And so you wouldn't have to have Anderson having quarterback meetings separate and then, trying to run around all the different meetings. I don't know how they schedule their meetings. They happen at the same time, or I've never run a program, so I don't know how these tend to work. But I just feel like with all the, what's the word? The day-to-day, all that kind of stuff. It gets simpler, I think, if he has a quarterback coach. Can he make it work? Sure. I'm sure somebody's done it before. I'm sure you can make it work. But, work smarter, not harder sometimes.
Yeah, and usually the head coach will have some position group that he'll still oversee and help out with. Gary Anderson always focused on the defensive line. That was kind of his specialty. Matt Wells with quarterbacks, that was his specialty. So I think you'll always see the head coach have some position group that he'll oversee and be a part of. But he's got a lot on his plate, and I'm sure he's going to have some help to try to manage some of that. But to the point about quarterbacks and managing quarterbacks, what does that situation look like for this year? Cooper Legas ended up being the guy to take over for Logan Bonner after he physically could not go anymore. Cooper had moments where he helped lead the team to victories. He had moments where he had turnovers and looked like he was very green behind the ears, getting thrust into an important role. And there's other questions about Levi and other quarterbacks that are going to be in the mix for Utah State for this upcoming season. Is there a quarterback battle, or is it Cooper Legas to lose?
It's up to Coop. Coop takes the first rep with the ones. It's a competition from that point on. He has been the best guy in the meeting room up to this point. He's a little limited physically right now, but his reps were solid today. He can either build a gap or he can let those guys push him. It's up to him. But he's done everything he needs to do to be prepared. The other guys need to make him really, really uncomfortable. Somebody beats him out, they make us better, or they push him and make him better. Whichever way it goes, it's going to help us in the fall. They ain't going to outwork him. They're not going to out-prepare him, so they're going to have to outplay him.
Yeah, and I've been asked a couple of different times, do you think there's going to be a quarterback battle? My answer is, in the sense that every training camp there is, I guess, kind of technically a quarterback battle because there's always the chance. But it's Cooper's job to lose. I don't think he's going to. You've got, he's
the most experienced in the group in the Utah State system.
Yeah. And you could say the real battle is just going to be who's the number 2. Is it going to be Bishop Davenport or Levi Williams? Levi was the number 3, becomes the number 2 with Logan out. But then he got injured, and so it ended up being Bishop Davenport. He proved himself to be at least a capable, workable backup, and he's another year older and hopefully a little heavier than 165 pounds. But he can make things work. So maybe Bishop has a chance to move into the number 2. Maybe Levi fights for that number 2, ends up in the number 3. That's really your position battle. Because unless Cooper gets injured or just somehow manages to completely tank training camp, then he's going to be going out there week 1, snap 1. He's the quarterback. I have very little doubt that he's going to be the starting quarterback week 1.
Yeah, it's the position battle. Everybody seems to obsess over the most, but I don't see this as being much of a battle.
Yeah.
This is Cooper Legas as the quarterback There are opportunities for others to develop and to fight for who's going to be the number 2, who's going to be the primary backup. But I could definitely see situations where these other guys get reps in games. There could be packages where Levi Williams is your guy to lead the team in certain drives and certain situations on the field.
They might have him in a short yardage package. That's about the only way Levi gets out there. They showcased that a couple of times. Then he got injured, so they couldn't really run it again. That is the only way I think I see it happening. But even then, Cooper's a solid runner. But, of course, the funny thing about this whole thing is that people were clamoring for Cooper to play when Logan wasn't doing well. And suddenly there's people all of a sudden questioning whether Cooper should be the starter because they want Bishop Davenport in there. It's like, well, what do you want, guys? Because, maybe it goes back to more of my thing. It's like Cooper wasn't, Logan wasn't the main problem with the offense. Cooper didn't, he played well. He played better than I gave him credit for, but he didn't necessarily solve anything in the offense. He added a running dimension, which was kind of something I didn't expect him to. I knew he could run, but I didn't think that would help that much. And then Bishop, honestly, if you're clamoring for Bishop to play, go rewatch him play. And he's very much if you look at Cooper, Levi, and Bishop, of the 3, Bishop has the best arm.
Yes.
He may also be the least accurate.
Right. He's got a cannon. He doesn't quite have the touch or the accuracy, but he has definitely upside and potential, and that's exciting. But give him time to develop in the system. Cooper Lega has the most experience in this system with this staff and the most starts under Blake Anderson. So he should be quarterback 1.
Yeah, he should be. He will be. Again, asterisk, barring injury.
Right.
We just kind of assume that. So he'll be the starting quarterback. I think he has a chance to take a step up this year. I was writing an article about potential breakout candidates, and I toyed with the idea of putting Cooper Lega in there because, even though he's the starter, he could end up performing much better than he did last year. You look at the last few games of the season, he put up far better stats because the coaches started to trust him a little bit more.
Yeah.
They started to let him sling the ball around a little bit instead of only ever throwing 5-yard hitch routes. They let him throw a little bit more. And now with maybe some better receivers, I'd like to get eyes on these receivers before I make a pronouncement because I liked last year's receivers and they end up not being good. I like this year's receivers, and I'm hoping I'm not just bad at analyzing wide receivers. But if, these receivers maybe have a bit more speed, a little bit more ability, then that opens things up for Cooper. He could end up taking a bigger step forward. Because Cooper does need to take a step forward. He needs to not throw so many interceptions, not have so many dumb decisions, and then just obviously little improvements here, accuracy here and there, and you could end up having a solid starting quarterback, borderline all-conference. That's kind of his peak. And that would be enough to get you to a bowl game, get you 6, 7, 8 wins.
Yeah.
At least that would be one of the factors you'd need to get that kind of kind of season.
But yeah, I think you're totally right that he seemed to gain confidence. The coaches gained more confidence in him and what they asked him to do, and being thrust into a game here or there. A guy can maybe catch a defense off guard, but being in more game situations, defenses start to understand what his abilities are or are not, and also the speed of the game is different than what it looks like in practices. So I liked how he was developing and gaining more comfort, if that's the right term, in the offense, but still room to grow, definitely. And that's why this is going to be a really big offseason for him. He got the bulk of the reps last year because Logan was out recovering from surgery. But this will still be another big opportunity for Cooper to take that next step, knowing that he is going into the season as the number 1, not just preparing himself to back up the starter.
Yeah, the one area of this team where I feel like can actually improve from last year really is the offense. Specifically the passing game. Of every other aspect of the team, they're fighting to stay as good as they were last year. The defensive line, the linebackers, the safeties, they might be able to take a step forward as well, but they lost Hunter Reynolds, Griffin Hall, and a bunch of others. But they could kind of stay the same because they're bringing in a pretty good transfer. I can't pronounce his name. I've written it 1,000 times, but I can't. The guy from Utah.
Right, yeah.
And then Ike Larson. And then they're bringing back a lot of their corners. So they can maybe be about the same, and they can maybe take a slight step forward, even with the losses. The offense does have a chance to get better. A lot of it relies on the offensive line, but the fact, again, that I just went over with Cooper and the wide receivers, they have a chance to be better if they are better than the last crop of wide receivers. In returning the leading wide receiver, Terrell Vaughn, he comes back. He was the best wide receiver last year. He's coming back. And if Colby Bowman and Arcellus Johnson and and Micah Davis and some of these others are better than Cobbs and McGriff, better wide receivers, an improved, continuing to develop quarterback. Robert Briggs, if he stays healthy, he performed really well last season, like almost 5 yards a carry. There's room for the offense to actually be better than last year, which is hard to say about a lot of the other position groups. And so you got to hope that that's the case, that they really can develop and be better than last year, because that's crucial to meeting what is at this point the bare minimum for each season, that is make a bowl game. You've got to have the offense taking advantage of the potential that it has, because it's one of the few areas of this team that has that level of potential to be better.
Shifting gears, well, let me just say this. There's another opportunity to see Utah State practice coming up on Thursday.
Yes.
Barring bad weather.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
I haven't checked the weather for Thursday.
There's supposed to be stuff in the forecast, so I don't know that I would totally rearrange my schedule. Planning on being able to watch them practice on Thursday. But if it's clear...
There's a 50% chance of precipitation.
If it's nice, then they'll be outside. If not, they'll be indoors, and public will not be able to attend. But last couple of minutes here on the show, Jason, let's shift gears. Let's get into the stat that blew our minds and our player of the week. And I don't have the fancy sounder that's going to work.
Come on.
So let's start off with the stat that blew your mind.
So this is one I saw a little while ago. I think I may have mentioned it on one of the previous shows, or at least to you. But it has to do with Purdue.
Good old Purdue.
Purdue, who joins Virginia as someone who's become a bit of a meme now. But it's kind of worse, because Virginia, they lost to the 16 seed. Then, the next year, they won the national title. And they'd done pretty well in the tournament anyway. Here's Purdue's last 3 seasons in the NCAA tournament. And they've been a top 5 seed in all 3 of these.
Yeah.
And they've had some top draft picks on some of these teams. Jaden Ivey was on these teams. So 2021, they lost in the first round to 13 seed North Texas. So they got upset in the 4-13 matchup. Now 2022, they lost to number 15 seed St. Peter's. Now, credit to Purdue, they were in the Sweet 16 when they lost to a 15 seed.
And St. Peter's was on a hot streak. They got on a roll.
So I give them some credit, but you also lost to a 15 seed.
Yes.
So that's a loss to a 13 seed, a 15 seed, and then infamously, forevermore, they lose to a 16 seed this year. So 3 straight seasons of being upset by high double-digit seeds. 13, 15, and 16. 2 first-round losses. But again, I do need to give them credit. They got to the Sweet 16 one of these years. So it's not like they've been complete failures.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look good when you put it on paper. Here's your losses to North Texas, St. Peter's, and Farley Dickinson.
Not a good track record.
It's like when you lose to a school named after a person, there's not too many that work.
All right. I don't think we're going to have time for player of the week, but maybe we'll do that another day. But I'm going to get my stat. It's also tournament-related. Women's basketball. In 2015, in the round of 32, North Carolina knocked off Ohio State. It was a jumper with 0.6 seconds remaining. On Monday, Ohio State beat the Tar Heels on a floater with 1.8 seconds on the clock. These are the only 2 teams in NCAA tournament history to each beat the other on a game-winning shot in the final 2 seconds of a game.
There you go. That's March Madness for you.
It's awesome. And the games pick up again on Thursday and Friday. We'll have full coverage here on The Fan and courtesy of the Westwood One Radio Network, NCAA March Madness on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. Also streaming on 1069thefan.com and the 1069 The Fan mobile app. We'll have it all for you here on this radio station. Till then, have a great night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.